The engines in the parking lot coughed and popped like a tired throat trying to speak, and the bright mid-morning sun turned chrome into a parade of small flashes. The air smelled faintly of gasoline and hot coffee from the kiosk by the gate. Students filtered in, laughter folding around conversations about prom and new sneakers. In the middle of that rehearsal of status, a battered sedan coasted into a space, its paint thin and flaking, the back bumper held by a rope that swayed with each slight breeze. Mark stepped out, jacket patched at the elbow, a toolbox on the passenger seat, and a wrench taped to the handle, as if someone wanted the world to see he belonged to work. He moved slowly, the soles of his shoes whispering on asphalt, and his hands smelled of engine oil and old leather. Someone in the crowd nudged another and pointed. Eyes that were used to judging looked up like a jury. That was the first note of the song that would turn the day upside down. "Nice car, Mark. Did you find that at a yard sale?" Jason asked, the words sharp and laughing. "What is that rope doing there? Is it a fashion statement?" Lily aimed her phone and smiled at the attention. Hold on, I need this for my story," she said, filming. "People will eat this up." Mark kept his gaze low. He could hear the camera shutter in 100 small digital hearts. "You must be kidding," he answered, voice calm. "It runs." Jason stepped closer and tapped the hood, feeling the tremble of the metal. "Runs? Looks like it could fall apart on the freeway." "You ever even open a hood?" Mark asked, tone steady. "I fix cars," he said. "Not your problem." "Fix cars? Since when do you do that, Mark?" Lily asked, eyebrow raised. "Since I had to," Mark said. "My dad taught me." "Oh, please, teach us how to make that thing not smell," Jason said, laughter rolling through a small crowd. The laughter grew into a wave, and someone uploaded the clip. The camera light pulsed like a second sun. Mark felt the heat of it, even though the breeze kept moving. He heard the smack of a door closing, the distant bell of the first period, the chirp of voices that wanted to be entertained. He adjusted his grip on the toolbox, palms gritty with grease, and thought of a photo tucked inside a manual under the driver's seat. If you have ever been judged for what you had instead of who you were, pause and take a breath now. Share in the comments one sentence that begins, "I know how that feels," or drop a single word that describes the moment you were judged. Your comment could help someone feel less alone. Stay with this story because the next scene shows how one quiet decision reached farther than any mocking clip. Later that same morning, scene darkened. Someone had scribbled insults on the rear window of Mark's car with a marker and broken the side mirror so it hung from a thread. The sound of glass underfoot was sharp like a snapped bone. Coach Ramirez, patrolling the lot, smelled smoke from a nearby barbecue and saw the group around the car. He walked over with a steady gait and an engine of authority in his voice. "What happened here?" he asked. "We were just messing with it," Jason said, shrugging. "He deserved a laugh." "You think that's a joke?" Coach Ramirez said quietly. "You think putting hands on someone else's property is a joke?" "He showed up with that car, so it was fair game," Lily protested. "Fair game?" Coach Ramirez repeated. "Do you know why he brings that car?" "Because it's ugly and funny," Jason shot back. "Because he doesn't have better," Mark said, voice tight. "You do not touch someone like that," Coach Ramirez said, looking at each one. "Apologize. Now." Jason scoffed. "Why? So he can cry for the camera?" Coach Ramirez softened but did not drop his stance. "You think you're above respect? You think laughter is courage? Leave the car, leave the jokes, and clean this up." Lily hesitated, phone lowering. Someone muttered, but hands began to move. The marker stains smeared with paper towels. The mirror was tied with a piece of string from the kiosk. The small crowd dissipated into the usual pathways of school life, but the clip had already leaked online. Mark felt a deep, slow ache as he wiped the glass with his sleeve, the rough fabric biting at his skin. That ache was not just shame. It was the same tightness he had carried since the funeral, that sat like a weight in his chest. After the cleanup, the comment, CTA, appeared under the video as it spread across the school network. Hundreds of reactions poured in, some cruel, some curious, many quiet. People typed quickly behind screens. Some said shame, Some said laugh. Others typed nothing but an emoji. It mattered. It taught him the speed of opinion. That afternoon, after classes, Mark drove the car to a small garage behind Rosa's diner, where an old sign read Marksville Auto, and the air was always heavy with oil, warm metal, and coffee. Rosa, who ran the diner, always kept a pot on and a towel for hands. Mr. Owens, who owned a parts shop on the corner, leaned by the window and nodded when he saw the car. "You back again?" he asked, voice crinkled from years in the sun. "Yeah," Mark answered. "I thought I could patch the mirror." Mr. Owens pushed up his glasses and frowned at the rope on the bumper. "That thing has history." "It does," Mark said. He opened the manual and pulled out a folded photograph. "My dad in that car," Mark said. "He taught me to listen to engines." Aisha from the community center arrived with a box of used bulbs and waved. "We can help, Mark," she said. "Volunteer group can chip in for parts." Tom, a former student who now apprenticed at the shop, offered a rag and a lift. "Show me the wiring," he said, hands ready. The group worked in the warm golden light of the garage, the smell of grease mixing with the sugar from Rosa's pies. In that small room, voices layered like an orchestra of care. "Why did you keep it?" Mr. Owens asked. "Because it was his," Mark said. "Because I promised I'd keep something of him alive." Rosa served coffee and placed a pie between them. "Keep the legacy," she said. The work was quiet and steady, oiling hinges, replacing a bulb, tightening the rope into something deliberate. Mark's hands moved with purpose, the texture of the wrench and the hum of the drill singing under his skin. Tom asked, "You ever thought about doing more than fixing this car?" Mark paused, wiped a hand on his jeans, and said, "I want to learn, honestly. I want to build something that helps, not hides." The repair became a lesson and a conversation, 5 or 6 voices exchanging tools and memories, teaching and listening in equal measure. Mark's backstory unfolded over the following hours in a slow, careful way that fit into the rhythm of greasy tools and coffee steam. He had grown up on a narrow house above his father's small workshop, where the radio always played low and the smell of metal was a comfort. His father, Carlos, had worked double shifts and taught him the sound each bolt made when it was loose or when it was about to give. Carlos had died 2 years earlier, in a night that left the house hollow and Mark with a promise tucked into a worn notebook. He had taken odd jobs, sweeping floors, delivering parts, and washing plates at Rosa's diner to buy spare components. At school, he kept quiet because attention often came with teeth. He learned to push down anger into focus, to translate the sting of insults into the neat satisfaction of a restored bearing. In the evenings, he studied repair manuals with lamplight and practiced welding techniques in a corner of the garage. He volunteered at the community center, teaching younger kids how a spark plug worked, and he kept notes on a little pad where he wrote down ideas for a mobile repair service he dreamed of starting to help neighbors who could not afford tow trucks. That pad was scratched with plans, numbers for suppliers, and a list titled Humility, Legacy, Dignity in his father's handwriting. Mark believed in small, consistent work more than sudden gestures. He believed in restoring usefulness to forgotten things. The backstory threaded through his hands as he tightened nuts and wiped his face with a cloth. 30, 40 small actions collecting like coins toward a goal. Weeks later, the moment of revelation came. A local charity fair invited students to showcase projects. Mark, with help from Rosa, Mr. Owens, Aisha, Tom, and Coach Ramirez, decided to enter a modest booth, the Community Car Clinic. They polished the old sedan until its tired paint caught light like a slow heartbeat. They fixed the mirror, replaced the muffler, and painted the rope into a deliberate stripe that read Legacy in small stenciled letters. When he rolled the car into the fair, the air smelled of fried dough and cut grass, and people stopped. Cameras that had mocked before now turned curious. A short clip of the car offering free minor repairs for elderly neighbors started to move through feeds with a different tone. A local blogger called the project humble and smart. A regional station sent a reporter who asked questions. "Why give services for free?" the reporter asked. "Why not charge?" Mark answered, "Because dignity should not depend on money," he said. "My father taught me to fix what we can. This is for the people who do not have someone to help." The reporter asked,
"Where did you get the idea?" Mark said, "From him. From watching him give the last of his pay to someone who needed a ride." The exchange was short, sincere, and recorded live. Comments shifted from cruelty to curiosity. Jason's name appeared in a thread, along with Lily, who shared a piece admitting she had laughed without understanding. The change did not erase the past, but it widened the view. The social reaction was swift and strange. The original mocking video had been reposted, but around it bloomed other clips showing Mark teaching a neighbor to check tire pressure, fixing a bike for a small child, and handing a note with a number for help. Mr. Owens posted step-by-step photos of the repair. Rosa uploaded a short interview about how community kitchens use donated rides for groceries. Aisha wrote about coordinating volunteer shifts. Comments came from teachers, neighbors, and strangers. Names started to tag each other. Coach Ramirez promoted a weekend workshop. Tom and Mr. Owens offered apprenticeships. The city councilwoman, Patel, mentioned the clinic in a newsletter and asked about funding for a mobile unit. Local businesses pledged parts. A crowdfunding link gained momentum. Some online voices offered apologies. Jason posted a brief video saying he had regretted mocking and wanted to help. And Lily wrote that filming without care had been wrong. Other critics remained, but the majority sentiment shifted towards support. The narrative transformed from one of shame to a conversation about humility, dignity, and effort. The project became a meeting place, a small hub for restless people who wanted to turn embarrassment into service. 5 community members actively helped and were named in posts as pillars: Rosa, Mr. Owens, Coach Ramirez, Aisha, and Tom. Each one was photographed handing tools, serving coffee, or writing schedules. Their faces became familiar as supporters who modeled patience, and their actions showed that mentorship could be quiet and transformative.
Practical. The viral arc did not make Mark famous overnight. It made a small network that could fix things and that chose respect over ridicule. 1 month later, the clinic ran weekend sessions, helping nearly 50 neighbors with minor repairs and free lessons on basic maintenance. The parking lot that once echoed with laughter now hosted an organized line of people holding bicycles, small motors, and broken hearts that wanted mending. Rosa baked extra pies and posted a sign that read, "Everyone welcome." The neighborhood newsletter printed a piece called "Humble Work, Big Heart." 3 months later, a local nonprofit funded a refurbished van for the community clinic. The van carried tools, warm coats in winter, and a clear policy that services were offered with dignity. Mark coordinated routes and taught younger volunteers how to listen and fix. Tom began an apprenticeship program, and Mr. Owens arranged discounts on parts. Coach Ramirez integrated the clinic into school service hours, giving students a place to learn and earn respect. 6 months later, the project had become a modest local institution. Mark was still quiet, hands still smelling of oil, but now he stood with people who once mocked and with those who had supported him from the start. He had not sought recognition, he had sought usefulness. When asked what he had learned, he answered simply, "Value is made by what you do with what you have." The car that was once the joke was repurposed to carry donations, to transport volunteers to elderly homes, and to carry a message that legacy is not about owning things, but about restoring them. If this story touched you, leave a like and share it with 3 people who need a reminder that kindness can be louder than mockery. Subscribe to hear more stories of humility, restoration, and quiet action that build community. Remember, sometimes respect begins with one small repair.